And now joining us from down under, please welcome Adam Long. Take it away.
Hello from Australia. And yes, with a last name like Long, it was nominative determinism that I would be here with the Long Now Foundation. Have you ever wondered why it is that when somebody sneezes, everybody immediately says, bless you? Even if they're not religious, even if they don't know the person, even if they're somewhere inappropriate, like a cinema. And the reason that happens is because of a story that was told hundreds of years ago that a sneeze was the soul escaping and bless you pushes it back in. Stories influence our behavior. They change the way we think and the way we interact with the world. But in the modern world, stories are being told mainly by this group, marketers. Just ask Naomi Klein. Because marketers are putting so much effort into repeating stories over and over again, they're infiltrating our psyche, our culture, and our very infrastructure. So today, I want to take you through 3 examples of how marketers have really ruined the Long Now. That's right. They've taken some stories and done some real damage with how those stories have spread. We'll start by going back to the 1920s. Here's a typical street scene in the 1920s for New York. The street was a place for people to live, play, commerce, socialize, and then came the car. Suddenly, the street started to get dangerous. And as pedestrian deaths mounted, public outcry grew. A couple of states got together and said, let's put some speed limiters on this confounding contraption so they can't go faster than 15 miles an hour. Now, the motor industry didn't like the sounds of that. They wanted to drive fast. So they came up with a solution. These guys. Now, in Australia, we'd call them a bogan. Some call them hicks. Some call them yokels. But at the time, they called them jays. Jays was someone who came from the countryside and didn't know how to act in the city. They became the first jaywalkers. And the idea of jaywalking is that instead of people dying because of reckless drivers, people are dying because of reckless pedestrians. That term, that story has changed the very fabric of our cities. Not just blaming the pedestrians for their deaths, but also deciding where people can and can't walk. Who's at fault when something happens? Can you imagine if the story was different and we talked about jay drivers instead of jaywalkers? What might our cities look like with a different story? Now, around the same time in the 20s, tobacco companies noticed that there weren't as many women as men who were smoking. Only 3% of women were smokers, while nearly 60% of men were. So they hired a PR firm led by someone called Edward Bernays, who happened to be the nephew of Sigmund Freud. Like all good marketers, he looked for influencers. Who will the market look up to? Now, at the time, suffragettes were in full swing in first wave feminism. These were the people that women were looking up to. So he teamed up with them, and at the Easter Parade of 1927, he got women to light cigarettes and call them torches of freedom, turning the act of lighting and smoking a cigarette from a dirty habit into something underpinning feminism. Now, if that's not a compelling story, I don't know what is. Who wouldn't want to support feminism? But the damage was done. You can see that by the time this data came through, 8 times as many women were smoking as there were in 1927 when that first story around cigarettes being torches for freedom first infiltrated our culture. Now, do you want to accept this cookie? Probably you do. I expect you accept many every single day. And this is another example where perhaps just using a different term, a different story for cookies, we'd end up somewhere different. Now, the term cookies was invented by Lou Montelli based on fortune cookies, where some code was trapped inside some other code and hidden. But what it means is that these cookies infiltrate and extract our data. They follow us around the internet. And if you think we're protected by privacy policies, well, on the left there, you can see the pink one is Instagram's. I'm sure we all read and agreed to that one. And on the right, you can see just how much data, when printed, Facebook collects on a single individual. So the question I have for you is, what would our state of privacy look like if instead of calling them cookies, we called them something else? Maybe creepy tracking code that watches you, just like someone watching you walk around a mall. Perhaps our attitudes to privacy would be very, very different. But there is hope, because knowing that stories can do damage means we can also elevate the stories that do help. And there have been plenty of examples of those throughout history as well. There's the wave of minimalism, which has really been championed by the likes of Patagonia saying, don't buy this jacket. Or think of all the stories that were told to make germ theory a reality and get people to start doing things as simple as washing their hands. Or think about the movement of social enterprises that are turning what people wear into a statement for what they believe in, like Conscious Step, my own company. So there is hope. As long as we're mindful and choiceful about the stories we tell, we can shape the long now for the better. Don't let the marketers do more damage.
Thanks, Adam. I'm wondering, do you see any examples of a potential marketing ruin happening right now? One that we won't see the effects of for a long time?
Oh, yeah, they're coming in all the time, aren't they? There's a question around, will the metaverse be an equivalent to the world we live in outside, for example? There are stories around whether our destiny lies in space or whether our destiny is solving the problems here. So that's an interesting one. The false dichotomy saying, do we go to space or do we fix the problems here on Earth? The marketers need to solve that one and get people thinking long term and not get distracted by the short-term thinking.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Adam.
Thank
And
you very much. Glad to be
see
here.
you later.